Joshua Smith was known across the marathon world long before his name ever felt heavy on his own tongue. Commentators called him the machine, the metronome, the man built for endurance. His stride was precise, his lungs relentless, his will seemingly unbreakable. From the outside, Joshua looked like destiny had already chosen him. But destiny kept stopping at mile 22. Again and again, race after race, Joshua would lead or stay within striking distance. His body would feel strong. His training data would look perfect. His confidence would be ironclad. And then, somewhere in those final miles, everything would unravel. His legs tightened. His breath shortened. Panic crept in like an unseen fog. The finish line would blur, drift away, mock him. Sometimes it was an injury. Sometimes dizziness. Sometimes a sudden wave of fear he couldn't explain. Each time, Joshua slowed. Each time, others passed him. Each time, the cameras caught his collapse, and each time something inside him broke a little more. Joshua had grown up believing in effort, discipline, and control. His father taught him early that winners didn't pray, they trained harder. His mother believed in quiet hope, but never spoke of faith out loud. God, to Joshua, was a word people used when science or strength failed. Joshua didn't plan to fail, but failure planned him. By 31, Joshua Smith had medals, sponsorships, and a reputation for almost. Sports analysts spoke gently now, cautiously, mentally fragile, physically gifted but inconsistent. Fans still cheered, but hope had dulled. Joshua felt it in every handshake, every interview question that began with, "What went wrong this time?" The worst part wasn't the pain. It was the silence afterward. Late nights in hotel rooms, ice packs melting on his knees, screens replaying his collapse on loop. Joshua would stare at the ceiling, counting breaths, bargaining with himself. Next race will be different. But deep down, he knew something was wrong, something no physiotherapist could reach. That was when Daniel came back into his life. Daniel Reyes had been Joshua's childhood friend, his first training partner, his shadow during early morning runs before school. Daniel had never been as fast, never as strong, but he had always been steady. When Joshua chased records, Daniel chased peace. Years ago, Joshua had laughed when Daniel started volunteering at a small neighborhood church. They drifted apart quietly, without conflict, just different worlds. Now Daniel stood outside a race venue, holding a paper cup of coffee, waiting patiently while Joshua signed autographs. "You still overstride when you're nervous," Daniel said gently. Joshua looked up, startled. "You still show up uninvited," he replied, forcing a smile. They talked, slowly at first, about life, about old memories, about nothing important. Daniel never mentioned church, never mentioned God. Until Joshua collapsed again. This time, it was worse. At mile 24, his hamstring seized. Panic followed. The crowd watched as medics rushed in. Joshua stared at the sky, tears mixing with sweat, humiliation burning, hotter than pain. Daniel found him later, sitting alone on the curb. "You don't need another coach," Daniel said quietly. Joshua didn't answer. "You need peace." Joshua laughed bitterly. "I need a miracle." "Daniel, no there. Then maybe you should talk to Jesus." Joshua's jaw tightened. "I don't believe in fairy tales." Daniel didn't argue. He didn't preach. He simply said, "I didn't ask you to believe. I asked you to talk." That night, alone again, Joshua sat on his hotel bed. Ice wrapped around his leg, pride wrapped tighter around his heart. He thought of every mile he had lost, every finish line that slipped away. And for the first time, Joshua felt truly helpless. He didn't know how to pray. He didn't use holy words. He didn't kneel. He just whispered, "If you're real, I'm tired." Nothing dramatic happened. No voices. No visions. But something loosened. Over the next weeks, Joshua couldn't shake that moment. He started meeting Daniel for coffee. Daniel shared scripture the way one might share bread, without force. Joshua listened skeptically, but curiously. One verse stayed with him. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Weakness. Joshua hated that word, but it followed him. Rehabilitation was slow, painful, humbling. Joshua could barely jog without fear. For the first time, he trained without certainty. And for the first time, he prayed before running, not for victory, but for calm. "Jesus, just help me finish." His body responded differently. Not faster, steadier. His mind soft. Anxiety still came, but it no longer ruled. When fear rose, Joshua whispered prayers instead of pushing harder. Months passed. Joshua entered another major marathon. No press conference, bravado, no bold predictions. Just quiet preparation. At the starting line, he closed his eyes. "Jesus, run with me." The race unfolded like before, strong early miles, controlled pacing. At mile 20, Joshua felt the familiar tightening. The fear arrived on cue. But this time, he didn't fight it. He breathed. He prayed. He remembered that finishing mattered more than proving. And somehow, the panic loosened its grip. Mile 22 passed. Then 23. The crowd roared louder. Cameras followed him again. But this time, Joshua wasn't alone inside. At mile 25, his legs burned. His lungs screamed. Victory was uncertain, but peace stayed. Joshua crossed the finish line, not first, but strong, upright, smiling through tears. Later that year, he won, but the win didn't define him. His faith did. Joshua Smith became known not just for his endurance, but for his testimony. He spoke openly about Jesus, about surrender, about how strength returned only after pride fell. He trained harder than ever, but trusted deeper. Joshua began mentoring young athletes, telling them the truth no coach had taught him. You can train your body to run miles, but only Jesus can heal the miles inside your heart. And when people asked him how he finally reached the finish line, Joshua would smile softly and say, "I never reached it alone.